What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 39, Island of the Idols, the finale episode. Crazy. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and this was a finale. It was a finale. I think the finale went very much the way we expected the finale to go, as per our last episode. And I guess I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't like really that much like twist to it. Like I'm happy that Tommy won because I think he's a very deserving winner. He had a very solid social game, but like the edit did not do him justice. I feel like his only personality trait, as shown through the edit, was being a fourth grade teacher. And I was like, come on, guys, you have 40 days of footage of this man, and you could not find something more interesting to his personality than just teaches fourth grade? Like, come on.
I agree. I think it's very neat how in our last podcast, we literally had the boot order down to a T, knowing or predicting Janet and then Lauren, and then final three would be these three. So I was like, wow. I guess very predictable. I feel like a lot of people who are super fans or watch the show more in depth than the casual viewers have been saying that Tommy was going to win since the premiere episode. We've never really seen Tommy in a bad light. I feel like even in the merge episode, which you could say is like that was the turning point of the season, and that's where all of the Kelly and Dan stuff came up. Tommy did not have any bad publicity during that, really. And so that's why a lot of people thought that he was going to win the game. And yeah, I agree. I think the edit, it's like, take a shot every time Tommy says that he's a fourth grade teacher in a confessional, and you would probably be dead. Take a shot every time Dean mentions his Instagram handle name or some kind of variation of DK Chillin', or even Tommy mentions TS Chillin' in the final tribal council. I was like, damn. Sort of funny, but then also like, wow, they really only have the same few one-liners that they keep on saying. So I really wonder if like, is this Tommy's personality, or is it just the edit? Like Survivor knew that they could capitalize off of Tommy being a fourth grade teacher kind of thing, or is this just all he says? Because his colorblind comments in the finale episode were funny. I was like, oh, wow. So I know two things about him now and not just one thing.
How has him being colorblind never come up before?
Yeah.
Even the fact that he would a colorblind fourth grade teacher would have been better than just like, oh, he's a fourth grade teacher. Oh, he's a fourth grade teacher. Like, just because the cast had a lot of like great things to say about him at Final Tribal Council. I feel like he won because they saw him having a good social game and saw him as like the center of a lot of decisions. And it's like, how did they reach that conclusion watching the game that we watched? Because I feel like I would see Tommy as a GOAT if the edit wasn't so consistent for him. Because it seems for a long time like he's meant to be Lauren's GOAT. Like Lauren brings him to the final tribal council and talks about how she was the one who made all the decisions, how she was the one who saved Tommy, how they weren't really a power couple, yada yada yada. And it's just like, how did we get here?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because it has been built up this season that like Lauren is the more strategic, more threatening of the two, and that's why she's going to be voted out before Tommy. So yeah, I don't know. I find that interesting because I just feel like we haven't seen much of his game, and maybe like a social game is more difficult to see because I guess that's harder to portray. And so that's why, like, premiere episode, we got clips of Tommy, even though his tribe didn't go to tribal council, of him making friends on the beach, bonding over, like, having a partner, going to maybe get married, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I sort of just wish we did see more of him, his personality, maybe other things, because I feel like even at the final tribal council, I didn't really understand his game. But like by watching the after season press and interviews and all of that, like I could understand it more. But even at Final Tribal, I was like, it's hard to visualize a good social game without seeing it, I feel like, really on TV.
Yeah, I feel like Kelly told Dean, like, oh, I don't really understand your essence. And it's like, I kind of feel that way about Tommy. And it's like, the edit was already so blatant that he was going to win that
Yeah.
I feel like they could have leaned into it a little more and showed us more of Tommy's social game. And like we said, there is more to him than being a fourth grade teacher. And I do not believe that his only redeeming moments were being a fourth grade teacher. So like
Straight up. And I think it's an interesting win. I feel like from the post-season interviews, Tommy is really emphasizing that, like, in the era of Big Move Survivor, he played this season with no idols, never winning immunity, never even going to the Island of the Idols, which was the whole freaking theme of the season. So I feel like hearing him articulate, like, yeah, my social game was so good, I didn't need all of these other things. I feel like that's easier to visualize, like, oh, shoot, like, that is a good game. You didn't need to win. You didn't need the souvenirs, as he called it, towards Dean at Final Tribal Council. Like, you don't need all of these trinkets, but you're bringing it sort of back to the basics, which I feel like is easier to sort of swallow. And I thought it was interesting that Tommy is the first person since Natalie White of Samoa to win without an immunity or hidden immunity idols or any kind of advantage. And I just think in the era of Big Move Survivor, it's sort of like super interesting that someone like that can still win this game. And I feel like having a good social game, like we saw it with like Michelle Fitzgerald, people don't necessarily think that's warrants a good win, you know? But I guess, you know, it does.
I think it's also interesting. Tommy is the first winner since the Final Four Fire Challenge was introduced to win without having won that Final Four Fire Challenge. That's a
Yeah.
little bit of a tongue twister. But and I thought that was interesting because I feel like the Final Four Challenge kind of like plays into that whole like big move survivor thing. Like, oh, I chose to put myself in for fire
Yeah.
and then ended up like defeating my nemesis in the game or whatever. And it's like it very much does attribute to the big moves type thing. And I think it's exciting if it's like at the tail end of a season full of big moves. Like I think in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, it was really fun that like, oh, suddenly there's this new twist, there's a fire challenge, but now that it's become like a part of the game, it's kind of lame, especially because it means that someone can be immune for like every tribal council and mm, mm.
Yeah, I feel like when we talk about the fire challenge for this season, I have some problems with it as well. But I think I think it's very interesting. You know, next season we're seeing finally, I guess we can talk about it because it was all speculation before, but season 40 is going to be an all winner season. But you know, they didn't see the outcome of this season. I guess maybe Rob and Sandra did, but maybe they flew back after they left Island of the Idols because then they had no part in the final immunity or final tribal council, which was sort of weird. But like, they didn't see the outcome of this season, and I guess, you know, they would have seen the outcome of maybe Chris winning. And so I feel like it is interesting because if this was last season, then Dean, with his big moves on the last 5 days of the game, maybe could have won the season, sort of like Chris playing big moves only at the end of the game too. And then maybe if Gavin were in this season, maybe Gavin would have won, having the good social game, never needing to win or like, you know, getting votes cast towards him. So I feel like it's definitely super interesting. And that's why the game is so neat, because it is who is on the jury. What do the jury members reward as a winner game? And so it seems that people rewarded the social game here over big move-itis, I guess. And then you can also say that Dean just didn't have the social currency to sway the jury members to his side.
I think it's also like it says something about this year or this season's theme. I guess both of the past season's themes. The winner of Edge of Extinction was the person who came back from the edge. The winner of Island of the Idols is the person who never went to the island. And I feel like there's like some parallel there that I don't know. But I think that's super interesting. And ultimately, it kind of speaks poorly to Rob and Sandra as mentors, I think. Like, the one person that you didn't see in the final five is the one person who ends up being the one to win the game. So,
yeah. And so interesting for this season sort of really being focused heavy on a strong, diverse female cast, even that one episode, Sandra got the title like a female is winning the season kind of thing. And then to have the two white dudes sort of battle it out at the end, it was just sort of funny, I guess, for the amount of times like a strong female winner is going to win and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think like what annoys me about Tommy winning is that it always seems like it's the white guy whose social game they can respect. Like everyone else who plays a strong social game, because like the strong social game thing is normally like a strategy that more women rely on because they aren't as likely to win some of the immunity challenges. Like we saw Nora this season be an absolute challenge beast. And I know that Chrissy won challenges in her season, but like when you think of like challenge beasts, you think of like Joe Anglim, Ozzy, like you think of like strong guys. And like the fact that this big moves thing seems to favor more the men, especially because I've seen it talked about on the Survivor Reddit how like men are more likely to find immunity idols because they're the ones who go out and find firewood, blah 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 blah. Like they're the ones who are more in position to make those big moves because they're the ones who are more likely to find idols, and like men might be more likely to like make the fire because that's like a man's job, question mark. And like all these things where like the way the show has changed over the years makes it easier for men to win. And it's like the one time that a man has a social game as a strategy, like, you know, like it seems kind of sus that like it's not a valid strategy when a woman does it, but then as soon as a man does it, it's like, oh, he had a really strong social game. Isn't it great that he didn't need any idols or whatever? When it's like, when women do the same thing, it's like, oh, you should have had more big moves. You should have had a better resume.
Yeah, and I feel like it was cool this season that we saw like Chelsea make a fire, Janet make a fire. We saw a ton of female players find immunity idols, and I think there's some statistic like after Angelina mentioned that fact of like women don't find hidden immunity idols as much as the men, like the number maybe has doubled since then or something like that for females finding idols. And so like that's super cool, you know, like wow, we can do everything that they can do as well. And I think with this season, this is the 5th male winner in a row. And I think the stat was that like it's a new record. It was only 4 male winners in a row. And so the 5th now, it's the longest running streak kind of thing. And so the last female winner we've had was season 32 with Sarah. And then it goes Ben, Wendell, Chris, Nick, Nick, Chris, and then now we're here with Tommy winning. And so I feel like Alyssa and I, we did a podcast back in the day of like gender bias and like Survivor winners. And like if you're a female, you're probably less likely to win because now in this age, it's becoming less 50-50. It used to be more 50-50 male-female winners, but now there's definitely a distinct split. And I'm sort of wondering, like, why is this? A lot of the past final threes, I went back to season 34, 5, 6, 7. No, okay. Sarah was Game Changers 34. I don't know why I wrote 32, but yes, correct my mistake there. But the past final threes, a lot that we have seen with one woman, and then 2 men, all of the times the woman in the final 3 has been seen as like emotional, and then that's why they aren't voted for. So this time it's Tommy, Dean, Nora. Nora is seen as like super crazy and like not having strategy, too emotional. Last season, 38, with Chris, Gavin, and Julie. Julie was also seen as too emotional, so we're not going to vote for her. 37 with Nick, Mike, and Angelina. Same thing with Angelina. 36, Wendell, Dom, Laurel. Laurel's just not winning that. 35 with Ben, Chrissy, and Ryan. Like we've mentioned, yeah, Chrissy, even though she was a freaking challenge beast, an older woman, mom too, like, I don't know. I feel like just something about this final 3 with 2 men and then 1 woman, like it's always just seen as they're too emotional, so they're not winning.
Yeah, like I was reading Entertainment Weekly's like recap, and basically there have been 52 votes cast in the last 5 tribal councils, and of them, 50 of those votes have gone to men, and only 2 have gone to women, and those 2 were for Chrissy in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. So it's just like this doesn't happen by chance, and I don't think that you can say that like women are just statistically poorer survivor players, because like that's just and I think it is especially frustrating, like you said earlier, when you consider that like the heroes of this season were all females. Like of the people on this season, like I texted Rachel earlier today and I was like, Kelly is my hero. Like she didn't win the game of Survivor, but as far as I'm concerned, like she's the person who like did the most as a result of this season. Like she changed the way CBS is going to be running the show permanently. And like she's been a voice for a lot of people who don't have voices. And like Kelly is my hero. And Janet is another one of my heroes for like standing up for women in trouble. And just I'm really, really, really upset by the way Janet got voted out, just because I feel like the idol nullifier is just bullshit. So that's my hot take for the night. But yeah, Janet and Kelly, the real MVPs. I will not be watching this season again, probably ever. But if I did, I would watch it for them, the loves of my life.
Yeah, so I feel like we can totally do maybe an updated video about this kind of gender disparity. We definitely have a video on this on the channel, maybe from like a year ago, which I'll link down below after this is posted live. But yeah, I don't know. It just shoot. At the final tribal council, I was like, damn, I really like it'd be sort of funny if Nora could pull this off and win the hot mess of a season this was. Like that would totally put a bow on this hot mess of a season if Nora could, pull a Christy Bennett or something and come back out of left field and like be articulate enough of her thoughts to win over the tribal council so we could have a female winner. But then halfway through, I was like, damn, this is not happening.
Yeah. I feel like even if Lauren had gotten to the final 4, like, or the final 3, people would have found an excuse to vote for Tommy over her. So it's like,
yeah, I feel like people made good points at the final tribal council. I think Dean should have practiced his answers more. It seemed like he didn't really know what he was going to say a lot of the times, especially with the ethics question that Kelly asked. To not have an answer, to not like think of maybe some boundaries that you would have not crossed or you would be willing to cross, especially with everything.
What happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Living through what happened this season, I feel like to not know or like to give some kind of BS answer sort of looks bad. And then I feel like Dean just, even though he is a salesman and I feel like he was selling his pitch well, and I was like, maybe Dean can pull it off. If I were at the final tribal council, low key, I would want to vote for Dean because I sort of like seeing those big moves more than the social game kind of moves. But like, I feel like Dean wasn't really articulating clearly. It seemed like people always had to clarify what Dean was saying. And like when he would talk, someone would be like, oh, so that means you had a good social game, right? Then he'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, just I think the most interesting conversation that I think happened at Final Tribal was the conversation between Jamal and Tommy about the Final 4 Fire Challenge. And I think that really highlights what is wrong with the Final 4 Fire Challenge. And I really hope that the Final 4 Fire Challenge is on its way out. Especially, like, I don't understand having both the Edge of the Extinction and the Final 4 Fire Challenge. Because it's just like, do you just want someone to, like,
yeah, I feel like with the Final 4 Fire Challenge, in this clip, I was just very sort of annoyed why Lauren was crying so much. And so you're on day 38, 37 of Survivor and you've not made a fire once on this season, I feel like we can't really give you any sympathy for that because final 7 or 8, maybe you want to start practicing because this isn't Heroes, Healers, Hustlers when the fire challenge is coming out of but frick nowhere and you don't know that this is coming, but it's been here for like 5 seasons, so like this is coming up, and to come to day 38 and to start complaining that you've never made fire before, I'm like, yo, all of you people do not deserve it. And I was just so peeved off. Like, you don't deserve it if you're going to start complaining on the Final Four challenge that you can't make fire. Why are you doing this to me? You signed up for a game, take it like a champ and freaking make fire. It's part of the game and you knew it was coming. Why did you not practice it? It was just, it was so annoying.
Yeah. Even if it's not your job to make fire, just be like, oh, my dad would kill me if I went on Survivor and never made fire or something like that. Like, come up with an excuse.
People. And I don't know, you're probably bored there too, 24 hours a day. And sure, like you're saying, someone is probably the designated fire maker, and maybe you don't want to target on your back for like practicing fire or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. Come up with some reason to not have made fire 38 days into the game and like to complain that you have to go and make fire when this is part of the show. Like, I can't have any sympathy for that. I was like, oh my God, this is a game, suck it up and do it.
Yeah, so
I don't know. And I think with Lauren going to fire, this was smart for Tommy, I think, because Tommy can't be the one to vote Lauren out because it seems like Lauren may hold a grudge against Tommy. And so Tommy helping Dean, even though it didn't necessarily hurt him in the final tribal council, I feel like it could have if people were hurt by that. But seems like if you're Tommy, you do want Lauren in the jury. So Lauren is an instant vote for you, sort of like a Wendell Dom thing. You want to vote out your right-hand person. So then they would hopefully, if they don't hold grudges or whatever, be an instant vote for you on the jury or start campaigning for you to win the game. And I feel like that's a perfect time, maybe final 4, final 5, to get your right-hand person out to start campaigning for you on the jury. But you have to do it in a way that like they aren't butthurt by it and then blaster your name at the jury.
Yeah. So yeah. All of that is true. I have nothing insightful to add.
Yeah, so I guess Island of the Idols overall, I felt like with this finale, it was just sort of weird. They were like, welcome, you're going to live in our home now for the last few days, haha. And then they just got on a boat and left. And so, okay, I guess. But having the theme be Island of the Idols and then they weren't really in the finale, which I guess is good because we were all scared that Bob and Rob and Sandra would get a vote at the end, or like they would take a jury member off and then become part of the jury. Like that would have been crazy. But to not even show the spy shack that they had and to not even have them, I guess, sit there, I don't know. It just felt like they were there and then they weren't 15 minutes into the episode. It was sort of weird.
Yeah, and like I said, the winner of this season ended up being the person who didn't go to Island of the Idols. So I feel like in general, you can't really say that it was like a successful twist because maybe people got further than they would have otherwise, but you can't really guarantee that. And like what happened to Dean on Island of the Idols to make it so Janet didn't win the game was literally a fucking coin flip. Like, I wish that Dean's whole lesson had come down to more than like, oh, it's just luck. Because like, that's just a shitty, like, I think it's a shitty lesson because, like, most of the time it's not just luck. Most of the time it is you, like, going out and doing something. And I wish that it could have been something like, oh, it's just luck sometimes, but you can turn the odds in your favor or something. Like,
yeah, I feel like overall, this Island of the Idols, it's not necessarily a bad theme. I think it just needs to be fleshed out more in a way that it's more fair. I feel like for the players that are going to the island, you can say, okay, Survivor is sort of a game of chance kind of thing. It's risk versus reward, cost versus benefit. But yeah, I agree. If you're going to Island of the Idols like Jamal and you instantly lose your vote without freaking doing nothing, or if you're Dean and you can basically guarantee yourself to final 3 kind of thing, I'm like, it seems just a little bit gimmicky. It might, I don't know. I just feel like it needs to be fleshed out more. I'm not really sure how you would flesh out the idea more. It is cool to have like mentors of the season come back and give you tips. I would totally love to meet them to talk through the game. Just being able to talk to someone who isn't in the game, probably good insight, and to have like super amazing players like Rob and Sandra there, probably super cool. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like that reward challenge that Debbie won, and then she
With
got to go on a boat with Cochran. Yeah, it's like that's probably cool, but also it's just sort of weird.
Like, I think that instead of the people being like, and your lesson is blah, 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 it should be like, what do you think you need help with? Because I think sometimes like people got a lesson that wasn't really useful for them. And I think having it be more like player driven rather than just the producers say this week we're going to talk about luck of the draw is better.
Yeah, so. Or even everyone who goes there gets to learn how to make fire, because seems like half the cast needs that lesson and not just Elizabeth day 1. But yeah, I don't know. It's a neat idea. It needs some fixing, I feel like, or some fleshing out, because some of the stuff, it was just too easy to win something. Then other things, it was like super hard to win something. And I don't know. I just think that makes it unfair. And maybe, getting a target on your back, going to the island, there's nothing you can really do about that. Even for normal, like your exile island or whatever, like you would still get a target on your back, and maybe you would have found an idol or something. Maybe do it all scavenger hunt style. I really did like the scavenger hunt in the finale episode. I thought that was really cool. I feel like we haven't really seen scavenger hunt idol finding recently. It's all been like, oh, let me look in this tree or this branch or under tribal council, or similar to the finding idols at the challenges kind of thing. I like that. I dislike when the idols, it's like come out at midnight and come grab it off a torch. That's less cool. But like the idols where you can't just find it in a tree, but you actually have to do something or like use your brain to put together clues. I really like the scavenger hunt this time.
Yeah, I think, like you said, doing more than just like, oh, you found an idol is really cool. And I think that also does help with like the idol get-in thing where, yeah.
Yeah, bring back the riddles. Those are super cool and quirky. Bring back the puzzles, I feel like. And then you get cool things like Tommy and Dean trying to tag team to find the idol, and like Tommy's asking Dean because he's colorblind and can't tell the colors. I was like, this is such a funny segment. And then Dean is like, oh, I have to go poop, and then finds the idol by himself. That's some good TV. So I want to see the players have to work for their advantages. Don't make it a coin flip.
Yeah, don't make it a coin flip. Janet broke my goddamn heart.
I feel like the hot topic right now is, should, I guess, idol nullifiers be in the game in general? And should idol nullifiers be in the game this close to the end? And I feel like I can definitely see both sides of this. Like, yes, idol nullifiers at Final 5, Janet has a problem with. She has said that in the post-exit interview, like it should not be a thing at Final 5 because it's too OP unless you have like an idol nullifier that you can do that, I feel like, because then it's like you're sort of really screwed if you're Janet and someone has that, especially this time because Final 7 became Final 5. There's no way you're getting freaking around an idol nullifier versus if the nullifier ended at like Final 8 or something, or 6, 7 before the Final 5, then there's more room to play and there's more room to bluff or like trick someone into playing it, because Final 5, when you know someone has an idol, and you could say maybe that's Janet's fault for telling Tommy that she has an idol kind of thing, but it's just sort of overpowering. But then I can also see the other end of the story, like if you haven't hit an immunity idol at 5, it's sort of overpowering as well, because then you're safe pretty much from 5 to 3 if you aren't sent into fire at 4. And then it's sort of like an easy run to the end, kind of like Ben style, or someone who goes from 5 to 3, drag to the end kind of thing. So I can also see like you need something to stop the players like Ben or Mike who just find a shit ton of idols at 5 by having an idol nullifier.
I just think it's so hard to play an idol correctly in the first place that it's like then adding on another element to make it even harder to play an idol correctly just seems a little unfair. Because it's like Dean has a 1 in 4 shot of figuring out who has the idol, and even if he didn't know that Janet had the idol and it was just him guessing who had an idol if he was playing the nullifier, if someone else had the immunity necklace other than him, he'd have a 1 in 3 shot. And again, it just doesn't seem fair that he gets to move further in the game just by playing the odds. And it's like, yeah, you can make the argument that that Janet shouldn't have told Tommy, but also you can make the argument that like you shouldn't be able to single-handedly vote someone out because of a 1 in 3 random guess if it came down to that. And like I agree that like having an idol at 5 and also having Final 4 fire is stupid, but like I would rather have them get rid of Final 4 fire because then Final 4 gets more interesting because it's like, will you go to rocks for someone? And like if you said, okay, idols and idol nullifiers can't be played at Final 5 anymore, then 5 is like not a good number for dramatic reasons because it's like it's really easy to get a majority with 5.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I feel like something is just off because advantages end at 5. Legacy advantage, like we saw Dean had, ended at 6. Dean thought like, okay, I just need to get to 6, and then 5 and 4 are sort of easy to get by because like you could win the immunity challenge, or you can win at fire, or like you can find a hidden immunity idol like we saw. So like to be safe from 6 to technically 3, I feel like that makes the end game less interesting, easier, maybe. So I feel like, something needs to change with this. And I agree. I don't know. Final 4, I think the reason why they put in this fire challenge is to not have someone like the winner of the season go home at Final 4, because I feel like in the past we've seen a lot of the people trajected to win the season got out at 4 because everyone realized it, and then there's no buffers there. But then I think that's more interesting. Then you have to have a good social game. You have to throw other people under the bus to get yourself further, especially when there's only 4 people left. Makes it really interesting. And I feel like adding fire in, it sort of just makes the people that were going to win the game get voted out at 5 instead of 4. So we saw Janet go home because she would have been a beast at fire, and then she would have won the game if she made it to 3. And so adding something in there like this, I feel like you can argue that the person who would win the game that would go home at Final 4 if there was no fire challenge would just go home at 5 right before the fire challenge. Or maybe, like Rick Devens would go home at the fire challenge. If Wendell and Dom went up there, one of them would have gone home because Dom did want to go up against Wendell and give up the immunity, but then he didn't. And so I don't know. Fire, I don't know.
It doesn't seem to really add to think about it.
Yes.
I feel like it added to the game when it was like a random chance thing. And like if we're gonna throw in random chance to the game, maybe it should be flip a coin. If it's heads, we do a fire challenge. If it's tails, we don't. Like that sort of randomness where like it should be something that players can't predict but can still plan for, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and so this is above our pay grade. Whoever comes up with the themes or challenges or twists, something maybe needs to be thought about. Let us know in the comments down below what you all think also about Fire Challenge, Final 4, Idol Nullifier being able to play down to Final 5 kind of stuff, because I think it really is an interesting debate. Like, are there too many advantages in Survivor? And then having these advantages being all able to play till 5? If you have a legacy advantage as well, you're safe. 6, 5, 4, maybe.
Yeah, it just seems like they're making it easier and easier to rely on advantages because it's like you have the legacy advantage and like an idol nullifier, and you are like in cahoots with someone. You could get from 6 to 4 or 6 to 3 easy.
Yeah.
Add on like an idol or two. Immunity challenge wins.
Yep.
Like you could basically be safe from merge until final three if you really got all of um
The
the
bling.
like
Yeah.
advantages.
Which makes it interesting this season that the person that won didn't use any of these advantages, especially because we've seen like the statistics are the most hidden immunity idols combined in the past few seasons are like more than like 10 or 15 seasons back when they were first introduced, kind of thing. So I just think that's interesting. Survivor definitely has become a lot more advantage focused. So it's a breath of fresh air to have Tommy win, not having used anything. And so I think that'll be very, very interesting going into 40, where some of these people haven't even played a Survivor season where hidden immunity idols were a thing. And so I'm like, wow, I'm so excited, which we will talk about in our next podcast, our reaction to the preview. But I'm so excited to talk about that and like wrap up 39.
Yeah.
So the reunion
I'm
show.
excited for 39 to be like over and done with. Like I feel bad for Tommy because he's like such a vanilla winner that everything that happened this season, him winning will not be remembered at all. Like him winning is the least interesting thing that happened this season. Sorry, Tommy.
Yeah, I feel like low key, I'd rather see Chris Underwood play in 40 than if Tommy were invited to play in 40 because I don't know.
Chris
Chris
obviously
didn't get to
has like
play.
more game left to play. I feel like
Yeah,
Tommy played a decent vanilla game and like vanilla ice cream, you don't really come back to it unless there's no other option.
because it's sort of like, what else would you change? You had a winning recipe with a social game. Chris had a winning recipe playing the last 5 days of the game. And so I would like to see Chris, like, what can he do more? Because I think he's sort of interesting in that way, like only played 9 days or whatever and then won. I want to see how he would fare in a normal 39-day season. So, yeah.
Yeah. Tommy. Anyways, like you were saying, the reunion show. It so 3 castaways weren't at the reunion show. Dan, Jack, and Elizabeth. Dan for obvious reasons. I was a little more bummed that Elizabeth and Jack didn't show up.
Yeah.
The word on the street is that Elizabeth and Jack are dating, so it was probably Elizabeth's choice, like, oh, I don't want to come, and then Jack decided not to show up in solidarity. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just
And
felt very weird and like off kilter to do a reunion show about everything that like happens. Yeah.
yeah. And so it is confirmed that they are dating. They posted on their social medias this week that they are dating. And I think when Jamal mentioned that Jack has moved to Rhode Island to be roommates with Jamal, guess who's from Rhode Island? So they are together. And I think it's just sort of sad to see people not go to the reunion show, especially like they would probably know that, like, okay, we are going to be asked questions or we aren't going to be asked questions about a certain topic that they might not want to talk about. So, like, they would probably have that prior information and, like, to not go and, like, this is the ribbon on the end of the season kind of thing. This is a once in a lifetime experience, I think. And the reunion shows, you get to see everyone again, you get to hang out, and it's like, that's the end of your freaking Survivor experience. And then to blow that off, it just, I feel like, sort of like rude to your season castmates and to the fans. And like, I don't know, it just seems like, I don't know, it's off putting. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity and you're not going to go to it.
Yeah, it seems like she was more scared of being asked questions than she was like it almost seems like a coward's move kind of. Like, oh, I don't want to admit that I did anything wrong, so I'm just not going to show up at all. Or like, oh, I don't want to have to make an apology.
Because then it's like, if like Missy and Aaron got a question, which they were not talked to about that at the final reunion show. I think doing it at the finale where you would have an audience and like these clips would be played probably on news outlets the next day, given the kind of news media that has taken up the story, like is better than not having a word and then constantly, I feel like, being asked about it after the show ends. Like, rather say your piece now and then what you've said is out there for people to comment on. And then I feel like commenting on nothing, that just gives people the opportunity to like put words in your mouth kind of thing. It's like if they were asked questions, they like that's how you say what you need to say.
And if they were asked questions, it's not like they didn't know they'd be asked questions about it. Like everyone's like, "Oh, it's a live show. She's probably just worried about like saying the wrong thing." Like literally just write up a sincere apology, like remember it, be like, "I'm really sorry that I did this. I realize it was wrong, blah blah." Like it's really not that hard to apologize, y'all. So,
And even like I'm glad Missy and Aaron were there because it also shows support. Like this is your season. This stuff happened on your season, but this is the end of the season. Like I don't know. It left a bad taste in my mouth like that these people weren't there and it's like I don't know. Like why can't you show support?
you need to own both the good and the bad. So,
Yeah. And so I feel like the reunion show, it had good pacing. They got to a lot of the important people to talk to them, ask them one question. And so maybe, pre-taping the show is better because then you get to maybe more people or whatever. Like, I guess we don't really know, but you can cut stuff out if it's like not okay. And the Sia money, that was interesting. Sia's literally giving less than one half of the survivor prize money after taxes. So maybe the goal is now not to win the $1 million and then get taxed. Win the Sia money, and then you have money too.
my favorite thing was that she gave Janet and Elaine $100,000, but then Jamal 15,000. Like, what did Jamal do to you, Sia? Like,
I wonder, like, it sort of feels bad for Jamal. Like, oh wow, he got 15,000 and then the next two people got 100K kind of thing. Maybe she has a price cap on like the amount of money she did, but I don't know. It
if
seems
that's
like
the case, why not split it evenly between the three of them and give them all like 50,000 or 75,000?
yeah.
Like, come on, Sia, we know you have money. Chandelier was a really big hit.
And so soon Sia will be giving more money to these people that don't win the show than the even show winner will win. So we all have to be amazing people, not kill chickens, do all this other stuff on the island to win the Sia money. Don't need to win the show anymore.
I think for me, the best part about the reunion show was like the conversation with Kelly and learning that like there are going to be changes made in the future. Like I said earlier on this podcast, like Kelly is my hero. And just like it must be so difficult for her to talk about. And I appreciate so much that she is talking about it. And yes, I love you, Kelly.
Yeah, 100% retweet what you've just said. And I think hopefully we will see changes in the future. I've seen like Survivor posting the new rules online kind of stuff. And so it's cool to see that something and someone can have impacting changes on like an industry or even a television show, because I feel like this stuff is usually so very bureaucratic that someone can complain about whatever and then it never gets done because there's just so much red tape that you have to go through. So I feel like it is very inspiring that like someone can bring concerns forward and then have their voice heard and not just be like shut down or like dismissed because the voice isn't warranted or whatever. And I just think in the finale, Jeff just interrupted Kelly. So I was sort of off put by that. Like, okay, I guess I get that you have to keep the show going, but because it is pre-taped, I feel like you have to be comfortable in silence as a TV show person. And to just, I feel like they should have just let Kelly sit there and compose her thoughts rather than Jeff interrupting her after she didn't speak for 2 seconds when it was clear that she was still like maybe trying to think and say of something else to say. because then, like, since it's being pre-taped, you can always just cut out the dead silence, and then, you know, I don't know. It was just sort of weird when he cut her off.
Yeah. And it sounds like CBS's policy changes are also going to be more than just like inappropriate touching stuff. So maybe we'll do a video on that in the future as well, just because I thought they were kind of interesting. And it also kind of made me wonder why CBS didn't have these policies in the first place. But like, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so this is a wrap for Survivor season 39. That is freaking crazy because I think we've started podcasting, Alyssa and I, since season 31. And so going into 40 next year, I am so freaking excited. We are going to have so much good TV with Survivor season 40 and then the Australian Survivor All Stars. Like, US Survivor, I feel like needs to learn something from the Australian Survivors challenges, because their challenges are just so much cooler. Totally can be another video. And then 2, the promos for Australian Survivor are so freaking hype. Like, if you all do not watch, I recommend it because their promos are just so cool. So amazing.
Yeah, I feel bad for like dunking on season 39, but I was really glad it was over, and I'm really looking forward to moving into season 40. So
yeah, so maybe in a few days we will see you all before next Wednesday and the holidays begin, talking about our Survivor season 40 premiere or preview reaction. So the 2-minute little clip that we saw of our 40 or of season 40 of our 20 favorite people coming back to play the game. And then probably in January, we'll start doing boot lists and other videos. And so if you all do have any videos that you want to see us do during this hiatus from Survivor, let us know in the comments. Also, let us know what you think of the Idol Nullifier and the Fire Making Challenge, because I feel like that is an interesting debate.
Yep. So let us know all of those things down in the comments below, and we'll see you soon.